Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the amazing horror app that I'm happy to be a part of, Chilling. For those of you who don't know about Chilling, Chilling is the home of horror with over 400 ad-free scary stories, ranging from creepypastas to true crime. New stories are added weekly, including new creepypastas narrated by yours truly. And I'm not alone either. Chilling has over a dozen of your favorite narrators to pick and choose from, with more coming soon. Chilling allows you to customize your background music with their one-of-a-kind ambient menu, and it offers a sleep timer to shut things down once you're sound asleep. Chilling offers a free trial to test things out, and it's only $2.99 per month after that. And Chilling is also running a PS5 giveaway for the month of October. To enter, start a free trial or be a subscriber on the app, and fill out the feedback form. It's pretty easy. The winner will be announced on Halloween. Links for the app and the giveaway will be in the description of this video. Big thanks again to Chilling for having me on board. It all started when my dog passed away. Let's call him George. George had been my best buddy ever since I had been 12. And as you can imagine, his passing left a deep hole in my heart, even bigger than the one that I had dug out in my backyard to bury him. However, as people say, I was sure that one day that I would move on from it. It was just that this process was taking far longer than I had thought. I still found it hard to get up in the morning, and I still found it hard to believe that I would never hear George's footsteps as he bounded into the house. I used to hate how he would always make a mess walking in, but now I wanted nothing more than for him to walk in and tear the furniture to pieces just one more time. In my grief, my sleeping pattern was pretty messed up. I ended up taking a nap afternoon that lasted well into the evening, and as you can imagine, I didn't really feel like sleeping later on at night. I decided that maybe deciding to take a walk would clear my mind a little. I didn't want to be in my house, as it brought back memories of George. George and I would usually go and take a walk in the nearby park, so I went on another route. This one ended up leading through the cemetery, which was a bit unnerving, but I didn't want to turn back at that point. It was during this walk that I saw something I wasn't expecting. A large group of people gathered around in a circle off in the distance. At first, I thought that it might be the local parent-teacher association meeting coming together. Though now that I look back on what I saw, that seems highly unlikely. After all of these people, they were wearing strange black cloaks, and they had this weird ornament around their necks. They were wearing masks. Nothing weird about that in these times, but these completely hid their entire faces. They were also holding knives, and one of them was tied up. And not to mention, why would the PTA meet outside of the school? That too, in a cemetery near midnight. Yeah, they probably were not the PTA, but I hadn't pieced that out at the time. So, I decided to walk up to them and say hello, thinking that some conversation might take my mind off of things. One of them saw me approach and they screamed, "We've been found! Run!" All at once, the gathered people scrambled away in random directions, even taking the man who had been tied up with them. I was rather upset. as you can understand, that these people were avoiding me. How rude do you have to be to run away right when you see someone? Anyway, I noticed something on the ground. It appeared that these people had dropped something in their hurry to get away from me. It was a rather thick book with a title written in a language whose letters I didn't recognize, so I assumed that it might have been in French. I had taken Spanish in school, you see, so I had no knowledge of French. Now, these people, they might have been rude to me, but I figured that I should still return the book back to them. The only thing was, I didn't know who any of those people were, and the book didn't have an owner mentioned on the cover. While it is definitely not a nice thing to go through someone else's belongings, this could have been someone's diary for all I knew after all. I did want to return it to its owner, and I had no clue as to who that was. And so I began reading it. The text inside was also in that strange language, but someone had scribbled out what I guessed were translations in English. The handwriting even seemed a little familiar, but I chose to ignore it at the moment, as my attention got to a page about something called necromancy. Apparently, it was possible to bring back to life someone or something as a zombie. It immediately piqued my interest, as it meant that I might be able to see George again. I decided that I could hold back on giving the book back. I wanted to see if it was possible to bring back my dog first. I was sure that whoever owned the book didn't need it back urgently or anything. Of course, I wanted to be sure about what I was doing first. I called my local veterinarian's office the next morning to ask about his medical opinion on bringing back an animal with dark magic, but I was swiftly disconnected. Sadly, major health organizations didn't have any information on this, so I just decided to go ahead with it. Now, the whole thing required some ingredients which I couldn't exactly find on Amazon or even eBay, so it took some time to gather them all together. When I was done and the next new moon had rolled around, I stood outside over George's grave and read out the incantation written in the book after I had placed the regents over the grave. At first, nothing happened, so I was kind of disappointed. But then I heard something. It sounded like muffled scratching beneath the earth. I began clearing it off, and eventually came upon a wriggling paw. A while later, and I had unearthed George. He was a bit decomposed, but surprisingly, he didn't smell at all. He barked happily as he saw me, and I saw recognition in his eyes. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of issues. For one, George seemed to reject everything that I wanted to feed him. He was undead after all, so I wasn't sure if this was an issue. Secondly, he was a lot more aggressive, at times even trying to butt my head. He never succeeded though. But I just thought this aggression was the side effect of having been buried for so long. After all, I think I would be a bit cranky too if I was buried underground for a few weeks. I decided to ignore these small flaws and instead spend as much time as I wanted with George. I can't describe to you how amazing it was to finally be with him after having lost him. It felt as if I was whole again. Aside from a few violent outbursts, he was just as playful as he had always been. While it was nice playing around with George, I remembered the book and the fact that I was supposed to return it. See, I had said that I sort of recognized the handwriting. I thought it belonged to my neighbor, who I'll call John here. And so I showed up at his house holding the book. "Here, John, I think you might have dropped this," I said. Immediately, his face turned to one of shock, and he vehemently denied owning it. "But this is your handwriting, right?" I pointed out. He said no, it must be some mistake, and that I should just take that book away and leave. The whole time, he kept looking around frantically, as if afraid that someone might be watching us. "All right, if you don't want it." I then paused. "But I should thank you for this. I mean, I managed to get my dog back thanks to this." His eyes widened as I explained what I had done, and he began to freak out even more, asking to see my lovable dog, George. I complied, and after all, John had played with George before. I took John to visit George, and John began to freak out for some odd reason. I thought that he would have been happy to see George again, but he didn't share my joy at having my pet back. I think this is what set George off, because he's normally such a friendly dog, but he went ahead and he bit John on the leg. It was a shallow bite, and I offered to wash it for him with some soap and water before driving him to get a rabies shot. But John, for some reason, just sprinted away at that point, and I had to hold George back to prevent him from attacking John any further. I got that John was kind of rude to George, but still, I didn't want my dog to hurt John any more than he already had. The next day, I got a call from John's number, but it was from his wife. Let's call her Jane. She had told me how John had been acting weird ever since he had come over with me to see George, and she was asking if he had taken drugs or something. I asked her what he was doing so weird, and she said that his skin was now grayer and that he had bitten her last night in bed. I told her that I thought that was kind of hot, and not what I would be comfortable with, but if it was what the two of them wanted to do, I had no real business at judging them for it. For some reason, she got frustrated when I said this, and she hung up the phone on me. Things have gotten progressively weirder over the week since then, guys. My town has been put into lockdown for the past 3 days. I thought it had to do with what was going on in the world, but it seems to be something different entirely. People have been whispering about zombies, but they have hushed up now that the military's been involved, and it has stationed troops here. I hear gunshots occasionally throughout the day, and so I had to move George inside since he gets agitated easily by loud noises. I won't lie, I'm getting kind of scared now. I haven't heard from John or Jane for a couple of days, and they aren't picking up their phone. I can't help but feel that somehow I might be responsible for all that's happening. But hey, Even if there's a zombie apocalypse, all zombies can't be bad, right? I mean, George is one and he seems to be fine for the most part. I really hope the military doesn't feel like they have to take George away. That's what scares me the most. I can't stand losing him for a second time. What do you guys think I should do? Please answer quickly. I think that they might cut off our internet, and I would like some advice before they do.